Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something we all do every day, eating, but it turns out it's way more complicated than it seems.
Yeah, we've got this amazing collection of sources, insights from philosophy, history, some really personal, even kind of shocking food stories.
And our goal here is to pull all these threads together,
Yeah.
to show that food is about so much more than just fuel. It's definitely not for bread alone.
Exactly. We're digging into everything, the critiques of the modern food system, some wild gastronomic history from like Tangier to old New York.
And even food taboos, why we avoid certain things, plus just the pure intense pleasure of eating sometimes.
We've got it all, from essays taking down the industrial food machine to the details of how to deep fry a rattlesnake.
It's quite the mix. So let's start with maybe the most fundamental question one of our sources raises. When you eat, when you choose that next meal, are you actually acting freely?
And that question takes us right to Wendell Berry. His core idea is that eating is fundamentally an agricultural act.
Right, farming and eating are connected.
But for most of us now, that act, it's become totally passive. We don't really question it. We're dependent. We're completely cut off from where our food actually comes from.
And there's a real political danger in that, isn't there? Being so disconnected.
Yeah.
If you're relying on a system you don't get, or worse, don't control, well, you're giving up freedom.
Berry puts it starkly. He looks at the industrial food system and says the ideal consumer it wants to create is... It's pretty chilling.
What does he say?
He suggests the ideal would be someone basically strapped to a table with a tube running from the food factory directly into his or her stomach.
Wow, that's graphic, like something out of a dystopian movie.
It is. But it nails the point, right? That's the end point of prioritizing total convenience over consciousness. When your life source is controlled like that, your freedom is definitely compromised.
So eating responsibly, thinking about it, it becomes this kind of critical act, almost a political act for your own self-determination.
Yeah, and it also loops back to a much older idea, sort of a theological warning even.
You mean gluttony?
Exactly. The vice of gluttony, or dukel as it was called, the thing that supposedly caused the fall in paradise. It wasn't just about stuffing yourself.
It was more about letting that physical desire cloud your reason, right?
Precisely. It was about letting appetite override judgment. And that distinction's key.
So is this modern unconscious eating, the sort of passive consumption Barry describes, is that like a new form of gluttony?
You could definitely see it that way, because eating itself isn't the problem. One text gives this lovely contrast. Eating a perfect, ripe mango.
Oh, okay.
It makes you feel satiate, happy, and benign. You feel good, nourished, not sick or distracted. The problem, the vice, comes from that mindless consumption, that passivity Barry warns about.
And once you are conscious, it totally changes how you experience food,
Yeah.
especially eating out or buying groceries.
Oh, absolutely. Once you know about, say, the conditions in feedlots animals standing in their own waste,
Yeah.
or about monoculture farming relying on toxic chemicals,
Mm.
you can't just unknow that stuff.
Right. Suddenly, picking up dinner becomes, well, a chore. You're weighing these moral compromises.
That consciousness is one path. But there's another way people deal with food, especially in contrast to that industrial anonymity. And that's turning it into, like, performance, status.
Oh, okay. So if the industrial system strips identity, high society creates these elaborate rituals to put it back, to differentiate.
Exactly. It becomes about aesthetics, symbolism, proving your place. Which brings us neatly to Delmonico's in New York City.
The legend. The place that basically introduced fine dining sophistication to America.
They really did. Huge influence. First place with menus in French and English. Someone called their menu the Magna Carta of sophisticated and gracious dining in America. That's quite a statement.
And think of the dishes they gave us. Lobster Newburg. Though I heard they renamed it after a fight.
Yeah, with the customer who invented it, Mr. Wenberg. So it became Newburg, not Wenberg.
Yeah.
And Baked Alaska, created specifically to celebrate buying Alaska in 1867.
They literally made history edible.
And it wasn't just adapting European classics. They introduced new things, too, like the avocado. An explorer brought it back, and Delmonico's regulars first knew it as the alligator pear.
Huh. Alligator pear. So food there was absolutely about status, showing you were cultured, knowledgeable.
Definitely. But even amidst all that fancy silverware and service, there's still this primal aspect underneath it all.
You mean just the basic act of eating?
Yeah. Joyce Carol Oates has this fascinating idea. She suggests maybe all this civilized stuff, this invention of cuisine, is just a way to distract ourselves.
Distract from what?
From the terrible meaning of their jaws grinding, like the raw reality of consuming another living thing.
Wow. That's dark.
It is, and it leads us straight into food taboos. If we invent food to hide its reality, we use taboos to define who we are and who we aren't.
Francine Prose talks about this, right? How taboos mark group identity, create distance from the other.
Exactly. And the historical examples are pretty grim. Like during the Inquisition, testing Marrano Jews pretending to convert by forcing them to eat pork. It was the ultimate test of loyalty through food.
It's heavy.
And it gets even more extreme in conflicts. One source mentions reports of mosques being ritually washed down with pig blood during wars between Sikhs and Muslims. What you eat, or refuse to eat, becomes this powerful symbol of identity and conflict.
Okay, so it's jarring then to shift from like Delmonico's perfect plates and these intense taboos to someone like Harry Crews.
Oh, yeah. Total contrast. Crews embraces the stuff most people shy away from. He wants food that requires effort, food you have to fight with, as he says. He loves chewy things.
Like tripe, cow's stomach.
Yep, calls it cross-grain like a piece of plywood. It's the opposite of that modern ideal of meat just melting in your mouth. He wants resistance.
And his recipe for hogshead cheese.
Yeah.
It's something else.
It really is super specific. You boiled a pig's head, right? But first, the instructions are explicit. Remove the eardrums and eyeballs.
Okay.
Then you scrape it clean, pick out the teeth, mix the meat and fat with herbs, press it. It forces you to confront the animal, the source, in a very direct way.
No hiding from the jaws grinding there.
Not at all. And his hunting is just as involved. Rattlesnake, for instance. He doesn't just buy it. He gasses it out of a gopher hole with gasoline fumes.
Seriously?
Yep. Then butchers it carefully, cutting along the backbone so each piece for deep frying includes 2 ribs. It's all about that direct engagement, that mastery over the source.
So for him, the fear isn't like religious taboo anymore. It's more practical.
Right. One source notes that for some, the fear of, say, trichinosis from undercooked pork has replaced the fear of God or the rules in Leviticus. Eating these weird foods means taking back that hands-on control, bridging that gap between life and death yourself.
And that effort, that labor, whether it's primal like Crews or super refined, that seems to be key. One source calls it a sad fact that the best foods are the products of infinite and wearying trouble.
It's true, isn't it? Something babies figure out early and chefs grapple with constantly. That real quality takes work.
We see that so vividly in Daniel Halpern's memories of Tangier in Morocco. The smells, the spices.
Oh, yeah. He talks about being seduced by those dark spices, cumin, clove, cinnamon, turmeric, paprika, cardamom, and fresh cosbur, that's coriander the scent, bringing back those intense, profuse, and honest markets. Real sensory memory.
But his stories also show how that intense labor can happen in, well, weird contexts, like cooking this big, complex dinner for Peggy Guggenheim in Venice.
And Ezra Pound was there, and Halpern reminds Pound they'd met before, years earlier.
And Pound just denies it.
Quietly says, yes, but you see, that wasn't me. Imagine, you've just cooked stuffed peppers, fusilli with sausage, tiramisu for this famous poet, and he tells you he wasn't himself when you last met. Bizarre.
Huh. It's amazing. But that drive, that willingness to do the hard work for flavor, not just for show, that feels like the core of Alice Waters at Chespinisse.
Absolutely. The early days there sound almost feral, like hunter-gatherer culture, foraging for nasturtiums and watercress by the roadside.
And her push for organic produce, it wasn't initially like an ideology thing.
No, it came from chasing authentic flavor. She realized that wanting organically grown stuff was just wanting food like it used to be. As she points out, most produce before 1940 was basically organic anyway.
That makes sense. It was just food.
Right. And that commitment led to these amazing relationships, like with the farmer Bob Kennard.
The one who takes their compost.
Yeah. Kennard takes all the restaurant's compostable waste, uses it on his farm to grow produce for the restaurant. It's this complete closed loop. The farm and the restaurant are seen as one community focused on the land's health.
That's the total opposite of Barry's tube-fed nightmare scenario. That's conscious connection.
Exactly. And when you have that quality, that sourcing, then the next level of labor is technique. How do you combine these amazing ingredients?
Which Madeline Kamen gets into, right? With pairing herbs and wine.
She has this great framework. She sorts herbs into categories. You've got the passe-partout, the go-everywhere herbs like chives, scallions, easy.
Okay.
Then the parsleys group. They refresh the palate, blend things. But she gives this crucial warning about cilantro Chinese parsley, saying it can totally wreck a good white wine. Something to watch out for.
Good tip. What else?
Then the big guns, the turpentine herbs, Rosemary thyme, powerful stuff. So strong they can just steamroll the nuances in a complex wine if you're not careful. It's a real balancing act.
And it's harder now, isn't it? Especially somewhere like Napa Valley, California, with, what, 64 different soil types? You can't just use the old European rules of what grows together goes together,
Exactly. You have to taste, categorize by strength, by volatility. It demands attention.
which seems like the perfect lead-in to maybe the ultimate example of labor and ritual in cooking. Harry Matthews' farce double.
Oh, the roast bone rolled stuffed shoulder of lamb. Yeah, that's not just a recipe. It's practically a manifesto against convenience.
The requirements are just wild. Marinate the lamb for 5 or 6 days in a mixture so big you might need a wash tub or a bidet.
Yeah, if you don't have the right traditional pot. And the stuffing involves fish quenelles, ideally from this specific mouthless chased fish, or perch if you must. It's intense.
But the most amazing part, the real philosophical point, is the rule about wrapping the stuffing, right?
That's the key. When you put the fish stuffing inside the lamb and tie it up, you absolutely cannot use plastic wrap or a baggie. No shortcuts.
Why not?
Because, according to Matthews, the whole point, the essential subtle exchange of flavors between the lamb and the fish, depends on that vulnerability, that direct contact. Using plastic would block it. It's deliberately choosing difficulty, tradition over modern ease for the sake of flavor.
Wow. So pulling all this together, what we've really unpacked today is how food sits at this crossroads of, well, everything. Passion, politics, memory, intense labor.
Yeah, whether you're consciously avoiding the industrial system or spending days prepping a ritualistic lamb dish, what and how you eat really defines who you are, what you value, how you connect.
You see the whole spectrum. The politics of a simple choice in the grocery store,
Yeah.
the pure joy of amazing flavor, the incredible dedication it takes to produce great food.
It connects us through status, through shared taboos, through these deep sense memories. It's profound.
So to wrap up this deep dive, let's leave you with one final, really provocative thought. It comes from Charles Lamb's essay about roast pig.
Ah, the crackling essay. He talks about that unique, almost ecstatic pleasure of eating crispy pigskin.
Right. But he uses that intense pleasure to pose this deeply unsettling ethical question. It forces you to weigh sensory delight against suffering.
He brings up this hypothesis debated by students back in the day at St. Omer's. They asked, what if a pig killed by whipping per flagellationem extremam, they called it, what if that method produced a flavor, a pleasure in the eater, more intense than any suffering we can imagine the animal felt? The question then is, would that justify using that method? Is extreme pleasure an ethical justification for extreme suffering?
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Where do we draw the line between ethics, aesthetics, and pure sensory satisfaction when it comes to what we consume?
It's a tough one. It really challenges you to consider the source of your next meal, the history, the labor, the potential suffering involved, and weigh it against your own pleasure.
Something to definitely chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.